Happy Thursday, everybody. This is Michael Gibson talking about my favorite topic and why I go to church. I call this "The Womb is Not Barren, and Is There Anything Too Hard for God?" I know that I can never exhaust this subject, and I know that for many people, this might be a topic that is a source of contention, may even be a topic that causes a lot of pain, that may cause a little bit of anguish. There is something that happens to a person when their baby, the thing that they wanted to produce, isn't physically capable of being able to bring forth that thing. It's not in a position to be able to birth the very thing that they hoped and dreamed that they would be able to do. When I go to church, I'm able to gain understanding that all is not lost and that there truly isn't anything too hard for God. So I just really hope that this will be a source of encouragement for someone today. The womb is not dead. When you begin to read and study the Bible for yourself, God can begin to pull back layers, or the revelation that is in the Word can be revealed more clearly to you as you open up your heart, open up your mind, and just ask God for revelation. And one thing that I do know in reading the scriptures is that there truly isn't anything too hard for God. So I was studying and I was reading, and I came across a scripture that talked about Sarah and how she was promised to conceive. And it had said that her womb was past the time of being able to produce a child. So her womb, in theory, was dead. However, she was still able to birth a child because God made a promise that a child would be birthed. So the promise that God has for you, even though you may feel like it's not happening, it's never going to happen, I want to tell you today, all is not lost. And one of the reasons that I study, and the reason why I continue to keep diving deep into this word, the reason why I keep staying under the teaching and the tutelage of my pastor, and the reason why I keep listening, the reason why I keep reading, because we overcome and we learn by studying other people's victory. We overcome and learn by studying other people's victories. We see what they did to overcome. We see where they've come from. We see what God may have done from someone else, and that gives us hope. So there is always hope. There's always hope. As long as there is breath in your body, you still have a hope that the thing that you dream of can come to life, because your womb is not dead. So Sarah was promised a child, and when she first heard the message delivered, she laughed. She thought it was funny because she knew the situation that she was in. And when you go through that story, you see how Abram, which became Abraham, he had devised a plan to birth a child of his own, and he went into his handmaiden, or her handmaiden, and they produced a seed called Ishmael. Now that seed did grow, but that wasn't the promised seed that God had spoken of. So in your attempt to produce a baby, sometimes you may devise plans that is not God's plan in an attempt. Hey, Kathy, I hope all is well. In an attempt to produce something, you may do something against God's plan in the order and the progression that God has for you. So they were promised a seed, but because it didn't happen in the time frame that they thought it would happen, they thought they would help God out. God doesn't really need any help. What he really needs is your obedience and your faith. and to believe in what he said will come to pass. So that was the first instance that I recall in Genesis of the womb that was believed to be dead, not being dead, because the angel of the Lord made a promise and the promise came to pass. So I want you to know that you may have a dream. It's not too late. Sarah was an old lady according to the standards of today's time. So it's never too old to birth your dream. Because even though you may be old in the natural, that has nothing to do with a person, a God that really has no time. He is eternal. There is no beginning. There is no end. It's just now with him. So never give up on your dreams. Never give up on your hopes. Never give up on the things that you thought you were going to birth. Because it is never too late. One moment with God can change your life. But when I began to read and dive and study the word, that wasn't the only person that had a barren womb. There was another mother, Manoah. She had a son, Samson. And her womb was barren. Her womb was shut up. And then it was thought that it was impossible for her to have a child. And the amazing thing is that when the angel of the Lord spoke to her, he gave her specific instructions and told her what not to do, and that she would birth a child and how not to cut his hair. And she birthed that child. So even though man said that it was impossible for her to have a child, that it was incapable of her to have a child, the question is, whose report will you believe? When they tell you the thing that you want to birth is impossible, whose report will you believe? When they tell you that you can't graduate, when they tell you that you can't start the business, when they tell you that you can't write the book, when they tell you that you can't get that car, when they tell you that you can't have the home, when they tell you that cancer can't evaporate, when they say all of those things, whose report are you going to believe? And by reading and studying the word, I begin to see that there was really no situation that can't turn around. There is no situation that can't be turned around. The reality is that God turned it. He's waiting for us to turn. God turned it, but he's waiting for us to turn, to make a change, and to begin to speak and rely on his promises. So Sarah, she was old. Manoah, she was barren, but God gave her a child. But when he gave her that child, he gave her specific instructions on what to do. And then there was another child that was born that they said, she's barren. And the amazing thing about this woman, she was blessed. She was barren, and she bore Samuel. And when she was barren, her husband blessed her. Her husband gave her many gifts, and he said, "Why are you sad? I am more blessed than 10 children to you based on the things that I've given to you." But she still was sad because she didn't produce the thing that she wanted. She didn't birth the baby that she wanted. But you know what she did? She made a vow to the Lord. She called out to the Lord. She began to look through the annals of history and see what was done prior. And she saw what was done for the woman before. And she made a vow to the Lord and said, "God, if you give me this child, he will honor and he will serve you. And I won't cut this child's hair." And God was faithful. And he revived the womb. When you get into the word and you begin to see the faithfulness of God, what you will notice is that there is a pattern. God is a God that is faithful. If you do your part, he'll do his part. You can be blessed and have many people pouring out blessings, but when you don't birth the thing that you really want to birth, it can lead to a source of contention because you can actually feel less than what you really are. You are great because God produced and designed you to be great. But when you can't birth a thing, the thing that you really want to birth, it can lead to a source of agony and a source of pain. But I want to encourage you today that all is not lost. Your womb is not dead. You just need to have one encounter. You only need one encounter that can change your situation, that can take you from a dead space to a blessed space to a birth space, so that you'll actually be able to hold a baby physically in your arm. It's one thing to it's one thing to want an apple. You can go in the store and you can buy an apple. You can go get one anytime you want. It's another thing to plant a seed in the ground and see that apple tree grow up, but it doesn't produce any fruit. That is painful. The reason why it is painful, because sometimes you will labor in the vineyard. You will put a seed in the ground. You will water it. You will water it. You will feed it. You will nurture it. And then sometimes that seed doesn't grow. That is more painful than going to the store and not being able to buy an apple because you didn't invest anything when you went to the store except your time. When you planted a seed in the ground, most likely you had to prepare the ground. Not only did you have to prepare the ground, you spent time, energy, and money. Not only did you spend time, energy, and money, you actually went out there and tried to tend the ground, and the tree wouldn't grow. It didn't produce anything. I just want to encourage you that the tree will produce when you put your seed in the hands of God. And when I say seed, I am not talking about money. I'm just talking about the thing that you want to produce, the thing that you want to birth. I want to encourage you today that all is not lost. 3 times in the Bible, in the Old Testament, there could be more. These people thought their womb was dead. They thought that they was incapable of producing. But when they had one encounter with God, they were able to produce. You are able to produce. You are able to produce. It doesn't matter of your age. It does not matter of your age. It doesn't matter if you're old. It doesn't matter if you're young. The enemy will tell you that the thing that you want to birth is dead, that you are incapable of birthing that thing. I want to encourage you. I want to remind you that God is capable of reviving the womb. God is capable of restoration. God is capable of putting you back to the original state that you were in. And even if you think that you're not complete, you are whole. Because God said that He wants to bring you peace, His shalom, nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing broken, and nothing out of place. So I go and I read and I study and I dive in because I want God to revive the things that I thought was dead that still needs to be birthed. The word can be unprofitable to you. The word can be unfruitful for you if you don't believe that it is capable of doing the thing that it said it would accomplish. God said that His word will not return to Him void. His word will not return to Him void. But it will not work for you if you don't believe that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. If you don't believe that you are made righteous by your faith and not by your works. The thing that you want to birth in life today, the thing that you want to revive today, has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with your faith in God. I mean, it has to do with you because you are the one that has ultimately the power to believe that God is able. But you don't have to do anything but believe that God is able. Now, believing that God is able doesn't mean that you have the right to sit and do nothing. Inaction is an action. I'm going to repeat that. Inaction is an action. God can revive any situation. The very thing that you thought were dead, God can revive it. Only one moment with God, He can revive the womb, but inaction is an action. Because if they never went in and knew each other as husband and spouse, there would have never been any conception. Because inaction is an action. You want to birth something, but you won't put anything into action. God has revived your womb, but it takes an action step. You must put something together. You must start moving. You must start to consummate the promise that God gave you. God is reviving wombs as I speak. God is restoring things as I speak. But God can only do so much with your inaction. It requires for you to take an action step. You must take an action step, because inaction is actually an action. Hey Thea, how you doing? It's very important for you to know that, because God has fixed many things for many people. But you didn't have the faith to believe that God actually fixed it, so you never moved out of your situation. You must be willing to go from point A to point B. You must be willing to do the thing that God said. And when I think about the stories of the women that had their wombs restored and the thing that was birthed out of them, in both situations, they didn't cut the child's hair. Did you imagine the trouble it would be to have a child and never cut his hair? You know how much extra work that would take on you as a parent? I know my daughter, her hair takes a lot of work. It's beautiful, but it takes a lot of work. I could only imagine my child going through all the years and never cutting her hair, how much work that will put on me. So sometimes God will allow you to birth a thing, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to work on that thing. So for order for you to have your womb be profitable, once the thing is birthed, first you must take an action step. Second, it's going to require you some work to maintain the thing that you actually birthed. God is not going to give you anything that doesn't require you to work. God is not going to give you anything that doesn't require you to work. You will have to do something. I've said this many times. God is not getting off the cross and coming down here on earth and walking in the flesh again. He's not doing that. He sent his spirit to reside in you. And hopefully that spirit inside of you is the motivating force for you to get up and put something into action. I'm telling you, there is nothing too hard for God. And God can revive all wombs. And when your womb is revived, it still requires you to do an action step. Many times God has done many things for many of us, but we refuse to do the next thing after God blessed us. You can listen to me right now and be encouraged, but if you don't do anything with this encouragement, your womb will still appear to be dead, because you have yet to try to see if it's been repaired. Your womb will still appear to be dead because you have yet to try and see if your womb has been repaired. I believe that God has blessed many of us with many things, but we are scared to try again because we tried over and over and over and over and it didn't work. We tried to start that thing and it didn't work. We tried to start that business and it failed. We tried to revive our marriage and it didn't work. One encounter with God can change anything. But once God speaks the word, it's up to us to walk out on that word. There is nothing that is impossible to them that believe. But if you believe, you must take an action step. You must do something. And this is why I continue to dive into the word. This is why I continue to keep my circle strong. Because we really are the sum total of the people that we hang around with. The people that really we allow to speak into our life. The people that we break bread with. The people that we allow to really get close to us. Those are the people that are influencing you. Not the people that are on the peripheral. So really your life is based on the people that you keep. The people that you keep close to you. The things that you hold dear to you. They are influencing you more than you ever know. So I want to encourage you to get in a good environment. A good environment. Because when God revives the thing that you thought was dead, you got to hang with people that are going to tell you it's okay to try again. You got to hang with people that say you may have failed that time, but God gave you a word and it's going to work out this time. Sometimes you got to do it afraid. Sometimes you got to do it afraid. It takes courage to do the thing that God has called you to do, because you might stand out. You might not look like everybody else. You may not sound like everybody else. You may actually be different, because God has made us all differently. God has all called us to a lane of greatness. You may not be able to speak as well as I, but that doesn't mean you don't have a voice. You may not be able to jump as high as LeBron James, but that doesn't mean you don't have the ability to jump. You may not be fast as Usain Bolt, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to run. You may not be able to swim as fast as Michael Phelps. It doesn't mean that you can't swim. We all have an ability. We all have an area of greatness. We all can inspire somebody to do better, to be better, to want better, to give better, to love better, to hold better. We can all inspire somebody, because we all are called to do one thing and many things, and that is to be and to live out the plan that God has for us. God is doing good things. God is doing great things. Congratulations on the house, man. The picture looked really awesome. It was a nice picture. That really touched my heart. I'm telling you, God can revive the thing that you thought was dead. The thing that you thought was impossible. There's absolutely nothing too hard for God. It's not that it's too hard for God. It's just too hard for you to believe that God would do it for you. In God, there is no condemnation. And one thing that I just want to remind you, that people that are guilty confess, but people that are shameful hide. But God said in his word there was no condemnation. So I'm going to repeat that. People that are guilty confess, and people that are shameful hide. But God said there is no condemnation in him. You don't need to hide anything from God. What you need to do is confess the thing that you did to God, so that God can release you, so that he can revive your womb. Sometimes your womb isn't revived because you're ashamed of the thing you did that caused the deadness in your life. The thing that you did that caused the deadness in your life, if you actually confess that thing to God, hey, cuz God can restore. God is a restorer. So if you confess your faults, God can restore your fault. If you confess your faults, God can restore your fault. And God can restore the thing that you thought was dead. The dream that you thought was dead. The promise that you thought was dead. Hope deferred. That's what makes a man sick. Hope deferred. But I want you to know that you don't have to defer any more hopes when you put your hope, trust, reliance in the word of God. I challenge you to try God and see if he will stand on his promises, because God is faithful. The reality is God is faithful, we are unfaithful. God is faithful, we are unfaithful. In the situation when the womb was revived, there was a condition placed on the thing that God blessed them with. There was a condition on the thing that God blessed them with. One condition was, he said, don't partake of any unclean thing. Don't have any drink. See, are we willing to do the thing that God said for us to get rid of in order to be successful? There is no magic pill with God. It's showing up and being obedient every single day. That is the trick to being successful anywhere in life. It's showing up, being diligent and obedient and a good steward every day. And if you fall, just admit that you fell. Get back up and try again. Because the only failure in life is to stop trying. Failure is nothing but a way to fine-tune the thing that you're looking to perfect. Failure is nothing more than an opportunity to fine-tune the thing that you're trying to perfect. And you say, that didn't work. So what you do is don't do it again. You have to learn from your failure, because the only true failure is just giving up. You can birth anything because your womb is not dead. There is nothing too hard for God. The house that you wanted, it's available. If you be willing and obedient, you'll eat of the good of the land. The car that you want is available. If you be willing and obedient, you'll eat of the good of the land. Your child coming back home and doing the things that you know is right. Peace in your home is possible if you be willing and obedient. See, we want peace in our home, and we ask God to bless people. God will always reveal you to you. He's not going to reveal somebody else to you. He's going to reveal you to you. And sometimes the thing that will cause the blessing to manifest in your life is you actually changing something in your life. God always requires something of you. He always requires something of you. He always requires something of you. That thing might be for you to circumcise something in your life, to cut something off. But most importantly, I know He's going to require your faith and an action step on your faith. So I go to church because God has showed me that there is nothing dead. There is nothing dead. There is nothing dead. The womb might look dead. The doctor might say it's dead. But it ain't over until God says it's over. If this message blessed you, please share it out. This is Michael Gibson, and it's why I go to church. Because the womb is not barren. And there truly is nothing impossible for our God. Our God is a restorer. But He restores based on our faith and our ability to say, God, I need you. God, I want you. And God, I'm willing to follow in the thing that you lay out for me. Let obedience be your bread and butter. That's what my pastor always says. Obedience is my bread and butter. I'm guilty of not always being obedient in everything that God has spoken for me to do. And I'm learning as I realign myself to God's alignment, which is the word that He speaks, things begin to work more smoothly for me. So if your life is rocky, reevaluate your level of obedience. Your level of obedience most likely will produce good success. And success means something different for all of us. So I'm not going to define your level of success. Because for some, success is coming home to a house. For others, success is just being employed. For some people, success is just having your children say, I love you. Success is based on an individual basis. So I pray that we all find a level of success. But I do know that true success happens when we are willing and obedient to do the things that God has called us to do. Serving God is not always easy, but it's worth it. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. And the reason that it's not always easy is just because we live in the flesh and that our body doesn't like to deny ourselves anything. We don't like to deny ourselves any real pleasure. But do know that the enemy doesn't tempt you with anything that you don't first desire. It says any man is tempted, he is drawn away with his own lust. So that means you must have first had a desire, or you must have first developed a taste for it. So I want to encourage you to watch the things that you develop a taste for. Because those things that you have actually developed a taste for may be the very thing that is killing your womb. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But God has come to give you life to the full until it overflows. So I pray that you have life more abundantly. It's Michael Gibson, Why I Go to Church. Again, thank you for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for all the likes, the thumbs ups. But if this has blessed you, please share it out. It's Why I Go to Church. Happy Thursday. Have a great day.